his son.
All right. Well, Shabbat Shalom, and
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
this is it seems like a long parsha, but it's not. It's divided up, in my Torah, it's divided up into 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. So it's really not that long, but it's a lot, and we're not going to be able to even discuss half of it because it's a lot of meat, and you may want to study it yourself later on. Yeah, no, I believe. And anyway, my Torah is divided into 4 sections. The first section is the messengers from Genesis 18th chapter 1 through 15. Then Sodom and Gomorrah, Genesis 18th chapter 16 through 19 through 38. Crisis, Genesis 20th chapter, verse 1 through 21, 34. And then the Akedah, or the binding of Isaac, is Genesis 22nd chapter, 1 through 24. And it says, Vayere elav Adonai ba'el, Be'alni Mamre Vehu Yashav Patak Ha'ohel Kocham Hayom. The Lord appeared to him by the terebinths of Mamre. He was sitting at the entrance of the tent as the day grew hot. John.
Psalm 89. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. With my mouth I will make known thy faithfulness to all generations. For I have said, mercy shall be built up forever. Thy faithfulness shall thou establish in the very heavens. I have made a covenant with my chosen. I have sworn unto David my servant. Thy seed will I establish forever, and build up thy throne to all generations. And the heavens shall praise thy wonders, O Lord, thy faithfulness, also in the congregation of the saints. For who in the heavens can be compared unto the Lord? Who among the sons of the mighty can be likened unto the Lord? God is greatly to be feared in the assembly of the saints, and to have in reverence for all them that are about him. O Lord, God of hosts, who is a strong Lord, like unto thee, or thy faithfulness round about thee. Thou rulest the raging of the sea. When the waters therefore arise, thou still them. Thou hast broken Rahab in pieces, as one that is slain. Thou hast scattered thine enemies with thy strong arm. This is the word of the Lord. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. May your kingdom come. May your will be done. We give thanks, Lord, for your great teachings, for your guidance towards us. We thank you for Abraham, for guiding him and giving him an inheritance, and giving him knowledge and a Torah, that he might make known to the world your greatness, your oneness, to make known to us the good and merciful God, the faithful God, who makes promises and wants to make himself known to his people. As you have made yourself known to Abraham, Lord, and also made yourself known through the children of Israel, through your great deliverance through the hand of Moses, and have made them free, and through your Son Christ, through his death on the cross, he has paid a debt of sin, reconciling us back to you, that we may be free also this day. And in this day we celebrate the great freedom brought through the sacrifice of Christ, the deliverance of the strong arm of God, and the willingness of Abraham to stand against the tide and proclaim that there is only one God who suffered many things. And we celebrate this day, Lord, as free men, and we rejoice and are glad in it. We do this, and our celebration also includes our worship of you and acknowledging what you have done for us. For we are grateful, Lord. And help us to proclaim your truth to all who come near, to not be ashamed of the word of God. This we pray in the name of our Christ Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotze lechem means ha'art. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives bread from the earth. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Berei pri hagatham. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
We have an interesting Torah reading, and like I said before, it's really power packed, and there's no way we're gonna get the depths of it. So you're gonna have to study on your own, because it's full of it gives the foundation for the nation of Israel. And so, as I said, the first part is called the messengers. In Genesis 18th chapter 1 through 15. I think we'll go through the first two parts, the messenger, Sodom and Gomorrah, then we'll have a break, and then we'll complete the rest. The Lord appeared to him by the terebinths of Mamre. He was sitting in the entrance of the tent as the day grew hot. Looking up, he saw 3 men standing near him. As soon as he saw them, he ran from the entrance of the tent to greet them, and bowing to the ground, he said, "My Lord, if it please you, do not go past your servant. Let a little water be brought. Bathe your feet and recline under the tree, and let me fetch a morsel of bread that you may refresh yourselves. Then go on, seeing that you have come your servant's way." They replied, "Do as you have said." Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, "Quick, 3 measures of choice flour, knead and make cakes." Then Abraham ran to the herd, took a calf, tender and choice, and gave it to the servant boy, who hastened to prepare it. He took curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared, and set these before them, and he waited on them under the tree as they ate. They said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he replied, "There in the tent." Then one said, "I will return to you when life is due, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and advanced in years. Sarah had stopped having the periods of women, and Sarah laughed to herself, saying, Now that I am withered, am I to have enjoyment with my husband so old? Then the Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I in truth bear a child, old as I am? Is anything too wondrous for the Lord? I will return to you at the time that life is due, and Sarah shall have a son. Sarah lied, saying, I did not laugh, for she was frightened. But he replied, You did laugh. That was brief and succinct. This is the beginning of the the beginning. I don't mean the very first beginning, because the very beginning is, anyway. This is the onset of the nation of Israel, and the nation of Israel. The promise was made to Abraham and Sarah, and the Lord appeared to Sarah and Abraham, telling them they will have a son. I'll name some things that probably we may not have a chance to discuss, but number one, the Lord appeared. A lot of Christian apologists believe that this was Yeshua before he came in the flesh. A lot believe in that, the Lord. And the name used here is the Yud He Vav He, the unutterable name. Also, another thing that they have discussed, Abraham had a calf plus milk. And in the Jewish thought, you're not supposed to mix milk and meat. So that's another big discussion you may want to read up on. Some apologists believe that that's not necessary, that mixing milk and meat was a euphemism for sexual debauchery. But the Jewish people don't mix milk. Matter of fact, they have two kitchens sometimes. If they're real Orthodox, they'll have a sink where you wash the dairy dishes and another sink where you wash the meat dishes. And you never mix the two in the refrigerator. So it's a whole big thing. But again, that's something you may want to study, but just be aware of that. And then this is the another thing, note, and I think it's very interesting. It says Sarah had stopped having the period of a woman, and yet God says he's going to let her birth a child in her old age. That's miraculous right there. She laughs, and she says she didn't laugh. Well, her son Isaac, in Hebrew, it means he laughed, or he will laugh. It's either he laughed or he will laugh. So those are the couple of things I wanted to point out. Any comment?
Well, I've taken a different take on it.
Okay.
I guess first because I didn't make it last week. I don't know if it was brought up that Abraham was the first Jew.
I think I did say that.
Okay, he was the first Jew.
Mm-hmm.
And the scene here, some take the trek. I don't say it was 3 days after he circumcised himself, and I guess after he circumcised his household. And I guess their point is that 3 days after circumcision is the absolute time of the greatest suffering. So he's sitting in his tent, which outside of his tent, which means which is somewhat significant, because if he's sitting outside of his tent, he's basically still welcoming visitors when he's in his greatest point of suffering. So this Abraham sitting outside of his tent is one of the characteristics of a sign of being a Jew, and that means you're open to hospitality. So, and when he saw these individuals coming, he lifted up his eyes, meaning he was, in a sense, looking for them and wanted to welcome them into his tent and extend hospitality to them. one commentator mentioned that he's extending actually hospitality to an angel. And the hospitality is in the form of food and water. Now, what does an angel really don't need from a human being? Food and water.
Mm-hmm.
So he is basically giving them something they really don't need. And I'm sure he probably knew that too. But it was built into his character to extend hospitality. And by extending hospitality, you open yourself up to extend the word of God to people who pass by. Some say that Abraham planted certain things, but some of the commentators said, well, maybe that's kind of a euphemism. But what Abraham did plant in the hearing of people who passed by was the word of God. So that was so far pretty much my take on it. One other thing too, Noah and Abraham shared a very similar experience. I think that this is probably more in the next outline, but I may as well say it now. But Abraham and Noah shared a similar experience. When God told Noah he was going to destroy the world with the flood and to build an ark, well, simply Noah just built the ark. And maybe I should have held off. When God told, the angel told Abraham he was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham engaged in an argument with the angel, with God.
Well, maybe you should have held off. Because
Okay.
that's the next session.
All right.
We'll let you go on with that one in the next session.
All right.
So,
hold on.
are you okay? So let's go on to the next session, which is called Sodom and Gomorrah, Genesis 18th chapter, 16th verse to 19th chapter, 38th verse, and it reads, "The men set out from there and looked down towards Sodom. Abraham walked with them to see them off. Now the Lord had said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Since Abraham is to become a great and populous nation, and all the nations of the earth are to be blessed, to bless themselves by him. For I have singled him out, that he may instruct his children and his posterity to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is just and right, in order that the Lord may bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. Then the Lord said, the outrage of Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin is so grave, and I will go down to see whether they have acted altogether according to the outcry that has come to me. If not, I will take note. The men went on from there to Sodom, where Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Abraham came forward and said, will you sweep away the innocent along with the guilty? What if there should be 50 innocent within the city? Will you then wipe out the place and not forgive it for the sake of the innocent 50 who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to bring death upon the innocent as well as the guilty, so that the innocent and guilty fare alike. Far be it from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth deal justly? And the Lord answered, if I find within the city of Sodom 50 innocent ones, I will forgive the whole place for their sake. And Abraham spoke up again, here I venture to speak to my Lord. I who am but dust and ashes. What if the 50 innocent shall lack 5? Will you destroy the whole city for the want of 5? And he answered, I will not destroy if I find 45 there. But he spoke to him again and said, what if 40 should be found there? And he answered, I will not do it for the sake of 40. And he said, let not the Lord be angry if I go on. What if 30 should be found there? And he answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, I venture again to speak to my Lord. What if 20 should be found there? And he answered, I will not destroy for the sake of the 20. And he said, let not the Lord be angry if I speak but this last time. What if 10 should be found there? And he answered, I will not destroy for the sake of the 10. When the Lord had finished speaking to Abraham, he He departed, and Abraham returned to his place. The two angels arrived in Sodom in the evening, as Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to greet them, and bowing low with his face to the ground, he said, "Please, my lords, turn aside to your servant's house to spend the night, and bathe your feet. Then you may be on your way early." But they said, "No, we will spend the night in the square." But he urged them strongly, so that they turned his way and entered his house. He prepared a feast for them and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. They had not yet lain down when the townspeople, the men of Sodom, young and old, all the people to the last man, gathered about the house. And they shouted to Lot and said to him, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may be intimate with them." So Lot went out to them in the entrance and shut the door behind him and said, "I beg you, my friends, do not commit such a wrong. Look, I have two daughters who have not known a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you may do to them as you please. But do not do anything to these men, since they have come under the shelter of my roof." But they said, "Stand back." The fellow, they said, came here as an alien, and already he acts the ruler. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. And they pressed hard against the person of Lot and moved forward to break the door. But the men stretched out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And the people who were at the entrance of the house, young and old, they struck with blinding light, so that they were helpless to find the entrance. Then the men said to Lot, "Whom else have you here? Son-in-laws, your sons and your daughters, or anyone else that you have in the city? Bring them out of the place, for we're about to destroy this place, because the outcry against them before the Lord has become so great that the Lord has sent us to destroy it." So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, "Up, get out of this place, for the Lord is about to destroy the city." But he seemed to his sons-in-law as one who jests. As dawn broke, the angels urged Lot on, saying, "Up, take your wife and your two remaining daughters, lest you be swept away because of the iniquity of the city." Still he delayed, so the men seized his hand and the hands of his wife and his two daughters, in the Lord's mercy on him, and brought him out and left him outside the city. And when they had brought them outside, he said, "Flee for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the hills, lest you be swept away." But Lot said to them, "Oh no, my lord, you have been so gracious to your servant, and have already shown me so much kindness in order to save my life, but I cannot flee to the hills, lest disaster overtake me and I die. Look, that town there is near enough to flee to it. It is such a little place, let me flee there. It is such a little place, and let my life be saved." He replied, "Very well, I will grant you this favor too, and I will not annihilate the town of which you have spoken. Hurry, flee there, for I cannot do anything until you have arrived there." Hence the town came to be called Zoar. As the sun rose upon the earth and Lot entered Zoar, the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah sulfurous fire from the Lord out of heaven. He annihilated those cities and the entire plain, and all the inhabitants of the city, and the vegetation of the ground. Lot's wife looked back, and she thereupon turned into a pillar of salt. Next morning Abraham hurried to the place where he had stood before the Lord, and looking down toward Sodom and Gomorrah and all the land of the plain, he saw the smoke of the land rising like the smoke of a kiln. Thus it was that, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, and annihilated the cities where Lot dwelt, and God was mindful of Abraham, and removed Lot from the midst of the upheaval. Lot went from Zoar and settled in the hill country with his two daughters, for he was afraid to dwell in Zoar. And he and his two daughters lived in a cave. And the older one said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is not a man on earth to consort with us in the way of all the world. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and let us lie with him, that we may maintain life through our father." That night they made their father drink wine, and the elder one went in and lay with her father. He did not know when she lay down or she rose. The next day the older one said to the younger, "See, I lay with father last night. Let us make him drink wine tonight also, and you go and lie with him, that he may maintain life through our father." That night also they made their father drink wine, and the younger one went and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she rose. Thus the two daughters of Lot came to be with child by their father. The older one bore a son and named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites today. And the younger one also bore a son, and she called him Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites of today. So this is quite a bit here, and let's see if we can digest it. I know John had started, so tell you what, let's let you go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, two tests were given, or a test was given to Abraham and a test was given to Lot, where Abraham and Noah, excuse me, and the thinking goes, since Noah was told by God to build that the world has just become so corrupt, he's going to destroy it with water, and for Noah to build an ark. So Noah did as God had asked. He built the ark to save himself and his family, 8 people. When God told Abraham that he was going to destroy Sodom, well, first he's going to find out what was going on to Sodom and Gomorrah, and if it was as bad as what he has been led to believe, he was going to destroy it. But Abraham essentially argued with God to save the city. So the point is, Abraham just didn't accept God's word that the city is so bad he's going to destroy it. He argued on behalf of humanity, the way it essentially, where Noah did not. Now, I'm sure it was a righteous type of argument, where he was, since Abraham was the guarantor, or he was in charge of humanity, of it spreading the word to humanity. Those people were human, and he felt that he should kind of stick up for them. Now, what God said was that, if I can find 50 or so righteous, I won't destroy the city. And he eventually got down to the number 10. And you may want to say, well, gee, why did he stop at 10? And I guess I kind of asked that myself. And some of the sages says, well, since 8 righteous people couldn't stop the flood, no sense in going lower than that. Because, if 8 couldn't stop the flood, right, then 5 wouldn't stop this destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and that's probably why he stopped at 10. One other thing was mentioned was that there was a cry. There was a cry from the city, and makes you wonder, well, who was crying? And the idea was there were probably the righteous people who were crying, who was being mistreated and killed and harmed and vexed because of that. Okay. So, chances are the cry was probably coming from the righteous who were being ill-treated in this city. And when the 2 men, it was funny, 3 men met Abraham at the tent. Abraham started talking with one, and the 2 proceeded on to Sodom and Gomorrah, so it was only 2 that ended up there. But when they got there, the city was just as bad as what they expected, and they destroyed it. It was not that how many righteous people were there? Only Lot and his 2 daughters, and I'm going to say his wife. Only, was that 4 people? The rest of the city itself, there were none in Sodom, because that all the men came out, the young, the old, you name it. They were all wicked. They were just wicked upon, they were evil to themselves, and they could care less about God. And let's see, I did put one other point was when the angel was leaving, he makes this curious comment to Lot that why should I hide something from Lot? I need to tell Lot
Or Abraham.
I'm sorry.
He's not going to hide it from Abraham.
Now, why would he make such a statement to Abraham? Unless Abraham, as I mentioned before, was some type of a guarantor. And the comment I did read, why did God owe Abraham an explanation as to what he was going to do about destroying Sodom and Gomorrah? Why do you think God owed him an explanation? Prior verses, God promised that told Abraham that all the nations of the world would be blessed through him. So it's as if Abraham became a foreman for the whole human race. And although, God is, let's say you may have a farm, and you put a foreman in charge of the farm. But if you wanted to do something to the foreman, you let the foreman know what you were going to do. Mm-hmm. So I think this is the same thing here. Abraham was the foreman or the guarantor of the human race, and God says, well, I'm going to destroy some of the human race, and I'm going to let Abraham know what I'm going to do. So that's why I think, and some of the commentators think, why the angel told Abraham he was going to do that. Hope it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Okay.
And we can go on. Like I said, this is a very interesting part here, because a lot of the world, I'm going to say the world now, because the world has totally turned against Sodom and Gomorrah. This is really, this is debauchery. I mean, they're, you can read it in the English, and probably if you knew Hebrew and you read it, and you would just really be, but basically, that these were sodomites, and they were willing to, their sin was so great that they were just willing to take these men that came in and do what they will with them. I read one somebody's commentary on this. I don't know if there was even a commentary. They were saying, "Oh no, Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed because they weren't hospitable to strangers." No, Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed because of the sin of sodomy. And it's exactly as you read, and it clearly states the men wanted to have intimate relationships with these
other men.
Yes, no way you can get around it. The only way you can get around it is if you want to get around it, if you want to lie about what's in it. But it clearly states that things were so bad the Lord was going to destroy them, and it was clearly so bad that they were about to jump on Lot, because the angels saved him and pulled him inside, but they were so angry with him they were about to jump on him. So, and then it was so bad that Lot offered his 2 daughters. And I read a commentary on that. They were saying that, boy, that was bad too. Why would you offer your 2 virgin daughters? But that wouldn't have satisfied him. Although there's a story in the Bible the way that happened, where in the Judges, I think it was the tribe of Benjamin, and the rich man had a concubine, and I think the same thing happened. I forgot what the name of the people, Belial, I think, that they did the same thing. They did ravage this concubine, and and then he sent the 12 pieces to around to Israel to show them what had been done. But I'm almost sure it is Belial. I may not be pronouncing that right, but it's the same thing. It's the same. They were sodomites. But here it's clearly we should have no question that this was so bad that God destroyed this city because of this sin of sodomy. That's why do you think it's called? It used to be. They weren't referred to as homosexuals. They were called sodomites. In the laws, it's called sodomy. So let's not be.
So today's world changed the name.
Yes.
Today's society changed the name.
Exactly. But in the laws, you're probably going to see sodomites, and it comes from the Bible. So you clearly know what it is. So let's not fool ourselves. What God says, this is an abomination to God. There's no way else to look at it. And also, let's see. Okay, God, and then I put one of the last notes I put, because again, this is so deep. It's deep, but at the same time, it's very clear. It's very clear that this is an abomination. That God destroyed this area over this abomination, and then at the end, a name that you have heard a lot of time, Ruth the Moabitess. Well, Ruth came from the line of Lot, because Moab means my father. So that's another discussion, because I think is it in the Torah somewhere, it says a Moabitess shall never enter the congregation. But I contend that she wasn't a Moabitess when she entered, because she had converted to Judaism, so to speak. But anyway, those are the things I thought of. Anything else? We could talk about this forever.
Yeah, no. There was one other thing. Maybe I'm going to be nitpicky, but in a sense, they were not. One of their sin was they were not hospitable, and when they say, well, they were destroyed because they weren't hospitable, well, yeah, that was one, but that wasn't the biggest reason. I'm sure if someone came in, conformed to their standard, they'd be hospitable to them. In fact, there was, I guess the Talmud or the Midrash talks of stories how evil that city was towards other people, especially, I'm sure the poor were treated shabbily. But if an individual didn't conform to their standard, they were ill treated. So yes, hospitality played a big role, but it was hospitality towards evil. That's what I'm going to say. It wasn't an open hospitality.
Exactly. All right, then we're going to start. The next part is called crisis, and that's from Genesis 20th chapter, 1st verse, to the 21st chapter, 34th verse. Okay. Abraham journeyed from there to the region of the Negev, and settled between Kadesh and Shur while he was sojourning in Gerar. Abraham said of Sarah his wife, "She is my sister." So Abimelech, king of Gerar, had Sarah brought to him. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, Excuse me. You are to die because of the woman that you have taken, for she is a married woman. Now Abimelech had not approached her. He said, "O Lord, will you slay people even though innocent?" He himself said to me, she is my sister, and also said, he is my brother. When I did this, my heart was blameless, and my hands were clean. And God said to him in the dream, I knew that you did this with a blameless heart, and so I kept you from sinning against me. That was why I did not let you touch her. Therefore restore the man's wife, since he is a prophet. He will intercede for you to save your life. If you fail to restore her, know that you shall die, you and all that are yours. Early next morning, Abimelech called all his servants and told them all that had happened. And the men were greatly frightened. Then Abimelech summoned Abraham and said to him, what have you done to us? What wrong have I done to you that you should bring so great a guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done to me things that ought not to be done. And what then, Abimelech demanded of Abraham, was your purpose in doing this? I thought, Abraham said, surely there is no fear of God in this place, and they would kill me because of my wife. And besides, she is in truth my sister, my father's daughter, though not my mother's. And she became my wife. So when God made me wander from my father's house, I said to her, let this be the kindness that you shall do me. Whatever place we come to, say there of me, he is my brother. Abimelech took sheep and oxen, male and female slaves, and gave them to Abraham, and he restored his wife Sarah to him. And Abimelech said, here my land is before you, settle wherever you please. And to Sarah he said, I herewith give your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. This will serve you as a vindication before all who are with you, and you are cleared before everyone. Abraham then prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his slave girl so that they bore children. For the Lord had closed fast every womb of the household of Abimelech because of Sarah, the wife of Abraham. The Lord took note of Sarah as he had promised, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had spoken. Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken. Abraham gave his newborn son, whom Sarah had borne him, the name of Isaac. And when his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him, as God had commanded him. Now Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Sarah said, God has brought me laughter. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. And she added, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would suckle children? Yet I have borne a son in his old age. The child grew up and was weaned, and Abraham held a great feast on that day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham playing. She said to Abraham, cast out that slave woman and her son, for the son of that slave shall not share in the inheritance with my son Isaac. The matter distressed Abraham greatly, for it concerned a son of his. But God said to Abraham, do not be distressed over the boy or your slave. Whatever Sarah tells you, do as she says, for it is through Isaac that offspring shall be continued for you. As for the son of the slave woman, I will make a nation of him too, for he is your seed. Early next morning, Abraham took some bread and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He placed them over her shoulder together with the child and sent her away, and she wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. And when the water was gone from the skin, she left the child under one of the bushes and went and sat down at a distance, a bow shot away. For she thought, let me not look on as the child dies. And sitting thus afar, she burst into tears. God heard the cry of the boy, and an angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heeded the cry of the boy where he is. Come and lift up the boy and hold him by the hand, for I will make a great nation of him. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. She went and filled the skin with water and let the boy drink. God was with the boy. He grew up. He dwelt in the wilderness and became a bowman. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother got a wife for him from the land of Egypt. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, chief of his troops, and to Abraham, God is with you in everything that you do. Therefore, swear to me by God that you will not deal falsely with me, or with my kith or kin, but will deal with me and with the land in which you sojourn as loyally as I have dealt with you. And Abraham said, I swear it. Then Abraham reproached Abimelech for the well of water which the servants of Abimelech had seized. But Abimelech said, I do not know who did this, did not tell me, nor have I heard of it until today. Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a pact. Abraham then set 7 ewes of the flock by themselves. And when Abimelech said to Abraham, what mean these 7 ewes which you have set apart? And he replied, you are to accept these 7 ewes from me as proof that I dug the well. Hence that place was called Beersheba, for there the two of them swore an oath. When they had concluded the pact at Beersheba, Abimelech and Phicol, chief of the troops, departed and returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk at Beersheba and invoked there the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham resided in the land of the Philistines a long time. Let's see, what notes did I make on this one? Quite a bit happened here too. Sarah gives birth in her old age, gives birth to Isaac. And as God commanded Abraham, Isaac was circumcised on the 8th day. And then we have Sarah casting out Hagar. I've read commentary that said a lot more than it says that Sarah saw the son whom Hagar, the Egyptian, had born to Abraham playing. Now, I've read a lot of commentaries that it wasn't so simple as playing, that he was doing something just really very bad to Isaac. And so once she has Abraham cast her out, another thing that I thought I always think about is she's crying. She thinks there's no more water to drink, but the angel speaks to her from heaven and then opens her eyes so that she sees the well. And I often think, that says a lot right there. What wonders are there about us that we can't see unless our eyes are open? And that's an analogy in Romans where Paul talks about Israel and that their eyes are partially closed. That's why they don't recognize the Messiah. But we know that when God does open their eyes, they will be able to see. That's about all I have on that one. Anybody else?
Not contained in the Bible stuff, but certain commentaries. I'm sure during Sarah's time, no one believed that she had this child, and this is what some of the commentaries say, that it was kind of a joke that she had a baby. They're contending, she didn't have a child. She got this child from, I don't know, some place in the market or somehow, but it wasn't miraculous. But what they also point to is that when Isaac was weaned, Abraham had this great feast, and during this great feast, that Sarah nursed all the kids that came to this great feast, just to prove that she did have this child because she's able to nurse children. And not only that, did she provide nursing for Isaac, her son, and nursing for the other children, that the family of Abraham provided nurturing and nourishment to the whole world. But we accept this without much, just Well, we do because of history and the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure during their times, I'm sure some folks didn't believe it. And I think that's part and parcel why Abraham had this big feast after the child was weaned, so that Sarah could display the child in the nursing.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing, and some say this was a euphemism, that Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba.
Mm-hmm.
Some say that he basically planted an inn, and as some of the story goes, he would take in people from the inn and would feed them, give them room and lodging, and they wouldn't charge them any money. And people would say, "Well, thank you very much." It says, "I did nothing for you. All this food and lodging came from God Himself."
Mm-hmm.
So, essentially, Abraham proclaimed the oneness of God through this inn. And this is how he blessed nations, was through this inn.
Mm-hmm.
And to let them know that, no, I didn't do anything. God did it all. Don't know if the story is true or not, but it would be interesting, which goes to the heart of hospitality.
Yeah.
And proclaiming the word of God. And I don't know, that's about all I have to say. There was something else on my mind, but I can't remember what it is now. It may come to me in a little bit.
Since you mentioned that about the whole world being blessed, the way that Genesis 12, if I can find it real quick, I'll read it. When God says the whole world, said, "I will bless them that bless you."
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can find it.
Person.
It's the wording that's interesting. Okay, I will make of you a great nation. I will bless, from Genesis 12. And all of the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you. That's an interesting wording of that, because the families will bless themselves by you. It's almost like how do I want to put it, that that the world has a choice in being blessed by blessing the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yes, and by blessing them, you in turn will be blessed. So that it's one hand wash the other, if I could put it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's an active thing where it's almost like you said with the end, that you can eat from Abraham's table. That you can bless yourself. Abraham lays everything out because God said they're going to be a blessing to the world, and you can go to Abraham's inn and eat and to your fill. I mean, but I don't know if I'm explaining, or I contend that it's an active part on the part of the nations as to whether they're going to be blessed,
mm-hmm.
or how they're going to be
mm-hmm.
blessed. That Abraham will bless you, but it's also something that you have to do in order to get this blessing, to not get it, to have a part in it. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Because it's laid out for you. He's for some reason that just who Abraham is and the blessing that God put on him, that having a part of this blessing means an action. That's about the best way I can put it. I can't explain it any better.
Okay.
All right, now we'll go to the last part. Viere, and it's called the Akida, or the binding of Isaac. It's Genesis 22nd chapter, 1st through the 24th verses. You want to read that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham. And he said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here am I. And he said, Take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering unto one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and calves the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which God told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand, and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spoke unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for burnt offering. So they went both of them together, and they came unto the place which God told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar unto the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay him. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him, for I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah Jireh, as it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of the heaven the second time, and said, By myself have I sworn, says the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thy only son. This is blessing. That in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the sea shore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. And it came to pass after these things that it was told Abram, saying, Behold, Milcah, she hath also borne children upon thy brother Nahor, Huz his firstborn, and Buz the brother, and Kenuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazon, and Pedish, and Japhlesh, and Belthulo. And Belthulo begat Rebekah, These 8 Melchics did bear to Nahor, Abram's brother, and his concubine, whose name was Reumah. She bare Taboth and Gram, and Teshhash, and Makashim.
That's it.
Okay. I'm not, from verse 20 on, I'm not sure the significance of that, but that's okay. I don't know.
Well, Rebecca.
It's genealogy.
They give the genealogy of Rebecca, who's going to be the wife of
I
Isaac.
got you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, I seen that name sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
One interesting thing, and I did not, I didn't double check it, but I figured you could tell me because in the Hebrew it might help me.
Mm-hmm.
This is a test for Abraham to offer his son up as a burnt offering.
Mm-hmm.
One commentator says, well, Abraham misunderstood God, and I guess to say it straight out, this is a test that Abraham failed.
Mm-hmm.
He did not tell Abraham to slaughter his son.
Mm-hmm.
He said, offer him up as a burnt offering. In fact, he used, the translation says, lift him up in dedication. And that was what Abraham was supposed to do, lift his son up in dedication, not to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my Hebrew's not that good. So, but to lift him up in dedication makes sense. Also, the commentator went on to say that the reason Abraham misunderstood these instructions because he was operating on the mode of fear of God as opposed to love of God.
Mm-hmm.
So, had he been operating on the mode of love of God, chances are he would have heard him correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But he was operating on fear of God. And one other thing that surprised me too, that Abraham didn't advocate for his son here.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't ask for clarification. But let me just stop it there. He did not advocate on behalf of his son.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be something to that, because sometimes we advocate on behalf of someone else, and we won't advocate on behalf of ourselves. And sometimes it goes in reverse. But as mentioned, this is a test that Abraham failed.
Well, well, if we look at it from the point of view of this being a template for the crucifixion of Yeshua, then Abraham did exactly what God did. God willingly offered up his son.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to maybe disagree with the commentator that Abraham heard what God said, and God did say, sacrifice your son. And I'm just basing it, my opinion, on what God did, because this is a template for what God did for an offering up Yeshua.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to say Abraham heard, and he was willing to offer up his son as God had asked. And I think that when the angel came and stopped them, and all that, then it says Abraham named that site, and in the Hebrew it's Adonai Yireh, which means God will see. And it has a whole another meaning when you know what the Hebrew. It says that it's not, and a lot of people had translated as God will provide. Well, in a sense, He will provide, but it's much more than that. God will see our needs, and as in this case right here, He provided a ram for the offering. So I think this is prophetic, as well as a template of what is to come during the crucifixion of Jesus.
Yeah. But even when he was laying out the wood binding his son, that ram was still there in the thicket.
He didn't see it. He probably didn't see it. Just like Hagar did not see that well. Perhaps he didn't see the ram.
Yeah, probably because he was operating under fear.
Fear,
not out of love.
Well, it doesn't. So what does it matter? He thought
it matters.
Well, he thought that God said it, but we can take it a step further in that whatever he was operating out of, God did not allow it to come to pass.
Sure.
God stopped him.
Yeah. Okay.
So no, Isaac was not offered up. But I think this says a whole lot. This speaks to the character of Abraham, I believe, that whatever he was operating out of, he still was going to do what he thought God has told him to do.
Okay. Now, the commentator goes on to mention one other thing, that the communication or the conversation between God and Abraham after this point almost dry up completely. Except when he goes to get a wife, that's the only other communication that God has with him.
Because he thinks he failed the test.
Because he failed the test.
Maybe in the Hebrew it goes on.
How does it read? I figured you would be reading it for me to help me out.
In the Hebrew, I have to get my dictionary there. But it says Abraham picked up the knife. Let's see.
Before that, at the beginning when he does the dedication. Well, let's say came to pass. Verse 2.
Verse 2.
But we can do it later. Too.
Okay.
We can do it.
But again, well,
his is it was an act of dedication as opposed to a sacrifice. Yeah, I do see the parallel between that and offering Christ. Some tend to say, well, for some reason, Abraham realized that God would raise him from the dead somehow.
Yes, I've read that too. But when you look at it from our point of view, because I think maybe a lot of the Jewish commentators have a problem with the sacrifice thing, the human sacrifice.
Right, because that's what all the Moabites were doing.
Exactly. And so, but again, if we look at Yeshua, here God, Yeshua even said, "No man takes my life. I willingly give it up." He willingly allowed himself to go to the cross. Is that a fail by God?
No.
Did God fail by allowing his son to go to the cross?
The failure was in humanity, but no. I think let's see, what's the idea here? That Abraham, who gave up the practices of the groups around him. In fact, the word Hebrew means what? Over here?
To pass over.
Hebrew pass over? Or other side?
Yes, means you're passing over.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Abraham passed over. So he's not practicing the same things the other groups are doing. But to offer his son would be the same practice that they're doing. So he is falling back into the same practice that he's condemning. If he would have sacrificed his son, if you follow the commentator, say, well, that's okay. Had he sacrificed his son, God would have raised him from the dead. Well, he would have sacrificed his son. The only difference is the Moabite sons was just still dead.
Yeah, but again, if I'm looking at it from what God allowed in Yeshua's death, that God allowed his son to die.
Okay, but you want to race ahead for me in years, and I just want to.
I'm saying this is a template. I'm saying what happened here with Isaac and Abraham was a template for what God was going to do with Yeshua.
Okay, but
that's all. I'm not.
No, I'm a Moabite, and I'm looking from a distance, and I'm seeing. I've heard Abraham. He's talking about don't sacrifice your child. Don't sacrifice your child.
Right.
I'm looking from a distance, and I'm seeing. What do I see? Abraham is going to get ready to sacrifice his child.
Right.
So hey, he's doing it. I'm doing it.
Right. I understand that, and it's something.
But Christ did more than just die on the cross. The idea of being offered up, many things play into it. So I don't know. I may have to do more research on this dedication part. Yeah, they do have. Yeah, they want to get away from the idea of human sacrifice, and that's if Abraham had done it. That's what it would have been. Even though the child would have been raised from the dead.
I understand that. And
human sacrifice.
Maybe that and his the commentary said his rationale. Did Abraham say that he thought that God could raise him from there? I think maybe the commentary said that, put it in his head. But all I know is the God of the universe allowed His Son to be sacrificed.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Let's see.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. So we could go on and on with this because it is so much meat in this, but at least we got hopefully we went deeper this year than we went last year. But this is so much. This is the beginning of the nation of Israel, through whom the Messiah will come. So because you'll see things repeated, like in this one. I forgot to bring it up. Abraham tells Abimelech that Sarah is his sister, which is true. And then the same thing happens to Isaac. He says to Rebekah it's his sister. So you see the same kind of thing going on here. There's nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. That's what Solomon said. Yeah. There's nothing new under the sun. Yeah. So
there's more than there's also the teaching of, how did the sage say, the teaching of morality to the world that's coming through Abraham.
Yes.
Yeah. So the building of a nation, but also the teaching of morality.
Yes. Yes. Very much so. Very much so. So we go on, and the next parsha is called the death of Sarah, Hi Sarah, and it's from Genesis 23rd chapter. I don't know if it's still, maybe 2, because this seems awful short if it's not. Let's see if it is. And I don't have my calendar here. From 23rd chapter through 25th chapter, 18th verse. So forgive me if I think it's just Hi Sarah. Look on that back page there, that right there. It should have if it's just one parsha. Sometimes it doesn't do it right. Does it put it on there?
23.
Okay.
1 to 25 through the chapter 18.
Okay. So it's the Yahu Hi Sarah met Shana ve'asrim Shana ve'sheva shanim Shnei Chai Sarah. Sarah's lifetime, the span of Sarah's life, came to 127 years. And Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, now Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham proceeded to mourn for Sarah and to bewail her. So again, we start building a nation. And that's basically what it is here. And there's a lot.
That's a feminine trait.
Yeah, it sure is, and it's really neat because sometimes I get mixed up about it, but it's not nice to just be able to look at it and see how Lot was in there, Moab, where that came from. So that's what we have for next week. We did a good job. We missed you guys last week. I know the cold flu was going around. So we continue on, and we'll sing "Praise God from whom all blessings flow," and then we'll close it out. Praise
God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen.
Shabbat shalom and have a good week.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Okay.